I'm with the South African wine lady, Joanne Bender.
Hello.
Hello. Well, you spend part of the time in Lancaster and you spend part of your time in South
I
Africa.
do. I first went to South Africa in 1986. I was quite young. I think I was in my early 20s. And I fell in love with the country. I was there for 10 years in the beginning, that first time round. And I don't remember whether I was really into wine and food at that stage. Um, in 96, I came back to the US, and then I went again to South Africa in 2010. And I was a bit older, and I had experienced more food and wine in the US by that point. So I really then had an appreciation now for the food and wine in South Africa. I had spent time in San Francisco and learned a lot about wine and a lot about food and nice high end food. And when I went back to South Africa in 2010, now I really, really started to explore. I traveled all over the different wine regions, and there's quite a number of wine regions in South Africa. You know, they started making wine back in the 1700s, so they've been doing it a very long time. They haven't been in the sort of in the up and coming or the current winemaking techniques for very long because of apartheid and sanctions and all of that. But when that ended in 1994, the whole world opened up to the South African wine industry. And now the winemakers from South Africa travel to Europe, they travel to California, they travel all over the place, they learn new things. Winemakers from those other regions come down to South Africa and trade knowledge and get to know. So now there's a whole lot more of an exchange of information and camaraderie with the South African winemakers. They're also getting better quality barrels because they weren't able to get really great quality barrels previously, and now that's opened up for them as well. So the South African wine industry is just like taking a huge rise in popularity. It's a lot more popular. South African wine is a lot more popular in Europe, I think, than it is in the U.S. But the U.S. is a huge, huge market, so it's not as well known here as it is in other parts of the world. The thing about South Africa, though, South Africans are very hospitable, and they like to eat and they like to drink. So they really love their wine and they love sharing it with other people and they love having it with food, and food is a big part of their culture. So, you know, coming from Lancaster, going to South Africa actually wasn't that big of a leap because we're a farming and food culture, they're a farming and food culture as well. So I fit in there very easily. So what I'm doing now, kind of just to give you an insight, is I am taking groups to South Africa, small groups. I think 6 people probably is max, maybe 8, because I've spent so much time there traveling around, enjoying the wine, getting to know the winemakers, getting to know the chefs. I know all the ins and outs. I know the tiny places to go, not the big commercialized places, but the little places. I have one-on-one relationships with winemakers and wine farms. So I'd love to have you come and join me for 2 weeks, probably not less than 2 weeks. 2 weeks, 3 weeks, maybe, and we'd have a lovely time in South Africa, drinking the great wine, meeting the fabulous people, and eating the just most delicious food. So I hope you'll join me.